A few months back, I was in a coaching conversation when I heard these words. I have major trust issues, Daph. I don't know what to do about it, and I just can't trust people. As I heard that, I thought I knew exactly what I was dealing with. After all, we've heard this before, right? Someone trusts, someone gets hurt, someone gets disappointed, and eventually a person concludes, I have trust issues. Simple enough. Or at least I thought so. But after that conversation, something just messed up in my mind. And it's lasted a few months, but until today, when I sort of finally find my peace with it. And I thought I should share. So when we talk about trust, we almost always talk about trust in other people, right? But I think there are 3 forms to trust. Trust in people, trust in ourselves, and the trust in life itself. And let me explain. Trust in people asks, will you behave the way I hope you will? Trust in ourselves asks, will I be okay if I'm not okay? And trust in life asks, will things work out the way I want? And I wrote it on a piece of paper. And as I was looking at it, something occurred to me. With people, the cycle looks something like expectation, control, and disappointment. I expect you to behave in a certain way. I become attached to that outcome. Reality arrives, you choose differently, and I call it a trust issue. Got it? Now, the next dimension, when I looked at trust in myself. And it wasn't very different here. I expect myself to always make the right decision, always know what I want to do, always stay strong, always get it right. And then I don't, and suddenly I say, I don't trust myself. Again, expectation, control, disappointment. And perhaps the strangest one of all is trust in life. I expect life to be fair. I expect things to work out. I expect suffering to make sense. I expect the universe to follow some version of my plan. And then life arrives with its own ideas. Once again, expectation, control, disappointment. At which point I had to stop and ask myself a question. If trust only exists when outcomes are uncertain, then isn't the need to control outcomes the opposite of trust? Because if I already know what will happen, trust isn't required, right? Trust only becomes necessary when uncertainty exists. And that realization changed the direction of my thinking. Because maybe we misunderstand what trust is. Maybe what I had always called trust wasn't trust at all. Maybe it was an attachment to a preferred outcome. Maybe when I said I trusted people, I actually meant I trust that you'll behave the way I hope you will. Maybe when I said I trusted myself, I meant I trust that I'll continue meeting my own standards. And maybe when I said I trusted life, I meant I trust that life will unfold according to my plan. And when reality didn't cooperate, I called it a trust issue. But perhaps what actually broke wasn't trust. What broke was the story I was telling myself about what should happen. And before I got any further, I want to pause and ask another question. What makes us trust someone in the first place? Think about it. What is it that makes a person trustworthy? I don't think it's perfection, I don't think it's promises, and I don't think it's chemistry. We tend to trust people when they do what they say, when their actions match their words, when they tell the truth even when it's inconvenient, and when they own their mistakes, when they show consistency over time. In other words, trust seems to grow when reality and representation match. The person we see and the person they are become increasingly aligned. And that's a reasonable standard. In fact, I think it's a wise one too. But even then, something still feels incomplete because even trustworthy people disappoint us, even trustworthy people change, they fail, just like we do. Which means no amount of trustworthiness can completely remove uncertainty, right? And that's where I think the deeper question begins. How much power have I handed over to people, myself, or life? Because trust is really our relationship with power being in hands we do not control. Right? The hands of another person, the hands of our future self, or the hands of life itself. And perhaps this is where so much of our suffering begins. Not because people are untrustworthy, not because we are broken, and not because life is unfair, but because we place a burden on all three. A burden that sounds something like, I need you to make reality unfold in a way that makes me feel safe. We place that burden on people, ourselves, and life, and none of them can carry it, and at least not completely and not forever. Where I am at now with this topic is trust is not believing that people will always do what I hope. Trust is accepting that they are free not to. And trust is not believing that I will never fail. Trust is knowing that I can recover when I do. And trust is not believing that life will always go my way. Trust is knowing that I can handle life even when it doesn't go my way. And that's a very different relationship with trust, because now trust is no longer external, it becomes internal. Now I'm no longer asking, will you behave exactly the way I want? But I'm asking, can I meet reality when you don't behave the way I want? I'm no longer asking life, will you give me the outcome I hoped for? Instead, I'm asking, can I remain open to the outcome that arrives? And perhaps that is where trust begins. Not in certainty, guarantees, or in control, but the quiet confidence that I can meet life even when life does not meet my expectations. And that's the question I want to leave you with today. Are you struggling to let go of an outcome you already decided was necessary for you to be okay with the person, yourself in life? Now sit with that. Because if trust only exists when outcomes are certain, then maybe trust begins the moment we stop demanding that people, ourselves, or life unfold according to our plan.